It's always a great day to draft on Underdog with $3 million to first place, the biggest prize pool in best ball. But an even greater day today, Anthony Richardson is going to be starting his first preseason game on Saturday. The vibes are high right now, and that's good news because I am already in an Underdog fantasy room here, Ball Mania IV again, and very excited to be drafting today, running around a little bit here, had some tech issues before the show, had a debate running backs on Twitter before the show, but I am here. I'm ready to draft, and I think we'll do a couple here today as well. So strap in. Let's check the board. Let's see where I am in. I am picking in the 10 hole. We do have a couple of badges in here, but a early run here with not a single badge to be found. And the great Lady Di here checking in the 6th spot. We all love British royalty here on Splash Play. That's what we're known for. So great to see that posthumously here, she is drafting enough teams to get a red badge. We got Justin Jefferson in the 1 hole here. No surprises there. Shout out to the chat as well, waiting for me. GMs, morning, fellas. Spag Play is live. Yes, Spag Play, Splash Play. It's all one thing that blends together. But of course, my pal Pete Overzet did a great stream yesterday with Scott Hansen of Red Zone. Big energy coming from Scott on that one that you'd expect from a man who does Red Zone and sits there for hours without peeing or peeing into a bottle. I don't know. Either way, though, check out that stream if you want some more content today. Either way, though, we're going to strap in here for hopefully some fun. Christian McCaffrey going to the 2 hole does feel like something here that could portend some fun. Some could say that drafting Christian McCaffrey over guys like Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, that is the equivalent of getting a Hyundai for yourself. And it is a Hyundai. It is a Hyundai. I know. Sorry to the people who love running backs, of course. I'm sure they come in, they see me immediately bash running backs. I lose all credibility. We are on the clock, though. We do have the 10 pick here. Nobody's sliding too much, so we will... Yeah, you know what I'm going to do. I'm always going to try to start 0 RB, and then from there, we can see if we want to go a different direction. Would like to up my Nick Chubb a little bit here, but at this point, my big advantage is that I'm going to be over the field on Diggs, over the field on Brown, over the field on Amon-Ra. All these guys at the end of the first round range, pretty high on exposure-wise. So that is something that for me, I'm going to continue to dial down here down the stretch, even if I would love to get to 4 to 8% of Nick Chubb. Not sure if that'll be likely to happen here, just because it's not the way I necessarily want to draft. Spiggity Spaghetti GM. Thank you. Thank you for that fun remix of my name. I've never heard my name paired with spaghetti, and I've never heard my name paired with a slur for certain kinds of men. Nope, those two things just somehow escaped me my entire life. Saquon going to the 12 hole. All right, we're opening some things up that might be fun on the way back. Let's see. CeeDee Lamb fell in our DraftKings draft yesterday. And I will say here, if you're watching this stream and you didn't watch that DraftKings draft yesterday, there's a lot of best ball content. It's hard to keep up, especially with Splash Play going to 5 days a week here of streams of drafts. If you should watch that DraftKings draft yesterday, because I got sniped and fucked harder than you can ever imagine in that particular draft. CeeDee Lamb falls here. So we will get our NFC East, it looks like. Yeah, let's just take CD. I don't know why CeeDee Lamb is falling. I have not seen an injury report about him. I haven't loved CeeDee Lamb this entire offseason. Actually been the one guy in this range that I'm a little bit under the field on, just because of the shifts with this entire offense for Dallas is here. Again, Mike McCarthy calling plays, Bronton Steinheimer brought in to be the architect of the offense. Those are things that I think do not bode well for a Dallas offense that was pretty explosive downfield, had a genius young mind like Kellen Moore, a former QB who likes to get the ball downfield. That's certainly a good thing. It's now not going to be there quite as much. And obviously, they do still have Brandon Cooks there. They still should be using the run to set up some deep plays. But I don't think there's going to be the volume. I don't think there's going to be the pace of play this year. So that's the kind of thing to me where I think CeeDee Lamb is actually appropriately priced here, being a guy who can go after Adams, can go after Wilson, can go after Amon-Ra. Diggs to me is on a separate tier. Brown, I think, is also on a higher tier than CeeDee Lamb. So to me, this is just the appropriate price for him to get him here and where I did. Now that says August drafts like first round Saquon. Yeah, there we go. That is certainly a way to look at it. Saquon, of course, has been a guy that fell at one point to the 3rd-ish round because the concerns about him not signing his franchise tag. Of course, he agrees to the revised contract that pays him slightly more money if he has the greatest running back season of all time. So that's where the running back stuff is. But either way for Saquon here, going to the 12th spot. If you're drafting Saquon at this point, if you haven't done any drafts, I get it. If you have done a bunch of drafts, like you should have been taking Saquon, May, June, I think, honestly. just because he is the casual's favorite. And boy, as we know on this show, I am not a Saquon believer, the most volume back of all volume backs. And anytime we can tear them down and not get as many volume backs in our life, I think you should try to do it. Never would I thought you would start wide receiver, wide receiver. I was certain I'd be watching a running back start. That's true. Really drafting out of type here. Me, the biggest piss boy of them all in 2023. Don't have the merch to show for it, but I do have the credentials here on stream of blindly and recklessly taking receivers in an ADP landscape that really does reward you taking running backs. That is always going to be my play style. Spags, what's your Godwin shares? I am underweight and want to know where I probably should be. I am very low on Godwin. I can tell you that. Let me refresh my exposures here. Have not done a Best Ball Mania draft yesterday, so I don't think anything will change. In BBM, I have 3% Chris Godwin, and I'm sure a lot of that is at him falling pretty heavily in rooms. I am not a believer in Tampa Bay's offense this year. I do think if you're making a bet on them, you should go in pretty heavy just because the more high likelihood is that they are going to be a bad team this year. They're a bottom 5 Super Bowl odds team. It's never a good sign, but also the fact that the South, a little bit less winnable this year. The Falcons improving, the Panthers improving, everybody around them kind of improving enough. The Saints, I think you make the case they also should be better. So to me, Tampa Bay, a team that I don't expect the best things of. They have been, along with the Cardinals, 2 of my biggest avoids the entire offseason. But that said, if Godwin falls, just make the bet then that Tampa Bay somehow beats expectations. And the way they probably do that is one of Baker or Kyle Trask getting out there and being a much better QB. So I think if you're taking Godwin, you'd almost want to know who the starting QB is going to be, because that guy's going to have to play above his head for him to have useful games at the end of the year. We're on the clock, though. A lot of names here to choose from. I really would like to up my bags for the Chargers overall. What makes sense here? But it does feel like Jahmyr Gibbs makes sense. I really would like to get some shares of this Lion stacked on the home stretch. I do have enough. Not going to be able to get the full Alpha Lion stack. But Gibbs, of course, correlates with CeeDee Lamb. Debo, a guy that I'm okay with. Best shape of his life is Debo, apparently looking slim in camp and all of that. But he's one of those guys, much like Darren Waller. I kind of need something for me to overcome how badly Debo performed for me last year. And him being in good shape, apparently Debo's also only been good in odd seasons. So that's something to keep in mind. 2021 was good for him. Maybe 2023 will be good for him again. Either way, though, I'd prefer to take Gibbs in this build where we got the discount on CeeDee Lamb. Where's the AR jersey? It is always right next to me. I'm not going to wear it because I haven't drafted him yet, but it's right here nearby, ready to go. Here's the name. The only man's name I will wear on my own body besides my name is going to be AR for this year. But have no fear, always nearby. All right, let's see what we do here. So we broke our 0 RB run, and we still have Debo falling back to me. So I think that does feel pretty okay here. Yeah. Really no issue. So we've gotten one nice ADP discount on Lamb. We've now gotten a little bit of one on Debo. Debo, I think, falls enough for the time I think I'm going to write home about. But getting 2 guys who are normally in the exact same ADP range without being at the turn, I think feels pretty good. Maybe makes his team a little bit more unique. So again, now I could talk myself into Debo. Boy, that guy looking slim out there. He's going to be running routes and looking like the guy that we all loved a few years ago. No way that Christian McCaffrey is going to take those little kind of dink and dunk pass game work that he used to get. No way that Brandon Ayuk's a better receiver. No sirree. We are Team Debo today. If AR wins me money this year, what am I going to do? I mean, I would do the same thing. I'd win money with anybody. I would certainly be a little happier if AR were the guy who drove me to it for sure. Like if AR has the big week 17, that's what won me Best Ball Mania 4 and the DraftKings Millie Maker at the same time. That'd be pretty sick. But I think overall, I would just, again, I think really the move for me would be to crown myself the king of best ball, to wear a crown on every stream, perhaps a robe as well, and then probably sweat more in the exact same studio doing the exact same thing. With slightly more views because I won BBM4. Baker starting week 1, preseason Trask starting week 2. Nothing screams confidence like an all-out QB battle. I think Trask can win it. The tough part is just that usually in this kind of situation, an NFL team would start Baker. Then when Baker uses up his rope, you bring in Trask. You give Trask the runway then, and then Trask could be the hero then who you buy another year for the coaching staff heading into 2024. I think, though, if we're trying to save our jobs, I would go with Kyle Trask. Trask was actually pretty good at Florida the last year that he was in college. Hasn't shown anything at all in the pros yet, so who knows how that'll carry over. But as we've talked about, Florida wasn't some well-schemed offense. We saw that with AR last year. AR did great things in spite of that offense. So that kind of gives me some faith in Kyle Trask, I think, being a guy who maybe deserves a shot in the pros. Really high EPA per target guy when he was in college. So that's something that, of course, I look at and swear by as the one metric that I'm willing to kind of die on the hill of this year. But I do think Trask, just the way that teams normally do this, he wouldn't be the starter. But if you really are trying to save your job, and I think Todd Bowles has to save his job, I think I would go with Trask personally. By the way, Spags, I followed you this morning on Twitter. You have a blue check mark that's one up on Crane. I've had a blue check mark for years, actually, which sucks because now I'm paying for it like a common pauper. But I've had one since my days back at Barstool. So I've had a blue check mark for a while, and I could tell you it's done absolutely nothing for me, but does feel like a little bit of a point of pride, even though, again, you can purchase it now. I don't know why I would, but the psychology of it does work. I can tell you that. Probably will have blue check marks, I'm sure, at some point, just because I want people to feel important, feel that power inside. All right, we're on the clock again. Madison falling a little bit. We've got Philly, Dallas, San Francisco. By the way, I like this construction because these are all teams that should be good. So I think that bodes pretty well. I think we should build out some Niners. Madison, not really at a discount, so we'll take it at face value. We'll go Kittle here. So we have Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Debo, George Kittle. So we'll try to get some Niners later on. Probably a Brock Purdy stack team, but not a must-have, I don't think. We'll see what we build around it, though. See what we build around it. You're Brandon new. Kittle it is. Any change in sentiment on JT Spags? Got him at 31 twice in 2 PBMs this week, and I feel pretty good about it. I took him at 40 on DraftKings last night in a draft that, again, I somehow forced myself to do more DraftKings drafts because I do have to max it out, despite how awful the one on stream went for me. But I do think that buying the dip on JT is still the move. Again, I have some concerns. The ankle thing isn't great. The trade stuff isn't great. The fact that let me make this pick and kind of wade through this. So I've realized I am under on I'm over on JSN. I'm under on Tyler Lockett. I don't know if I fully want to correct that this year or, right now necessarily, or at all this year, honestly. I'm going to increase the JSN bags. Not going to get, I don't think we're going to get anything good from Pittsburgh receivers on the way back, but we'll see. So Brown, Lamb, Samuel, JSN. I like that start. Can't complain about it. But the issue with JT is so the ankle stuff, not great. Him going to his own specialist, not that great. Shane Steichen said he expects him back at camp next week. Whether that means practicing or not, I don't know. But Shane Steichen did say he expects him back. If he's not practicing by next week, I think that's not a great sign, but I would still buy the dip until we get some more signal next week, just because he's so cheap here. I mean, you got to remember, I took Jonathan Taylor, and this is me, not the biggest believer in him, a believer in the Colts, a believer in the run pass offense, all that stuff, option rather, all that stuff. But I do think that with JT, with where he is now, you're just getting such an advantage on earlier BBM teams where if he does go off at 30s, 40, I think that's the kind of thing that does carry some weight. So I have no issue drafting JT. I wouldn't draft him everywhere. I'd be more inclined to draft Jalen Waddle everywhere. He's more likely to fall on DraftKings with how much they hate the questionable tag or the out tag on that site. But I do think anywhere you're falling with those guys, just take the fallers when you can, absorb some risk with it, and you're probably better off because if those guys are good to go in a month, which that's all they have to do, they should be a much better draft capital for you. DK has surpassed Underdog as the best ball king. Boy, Creamy Sauce, that's a hot take. Did love the sparring, though, from our guy Jeremy Levine over at Underdog, the CEO, who is good friends with our pal Pete as well. So been a great guy to this show and overall in general, and been nice to me in the past as well with some stuff with my startup probably. So very much rooting for him, as well as just we love Underdog here. But him going at DraftKings on Twitter, very fun twist to an exciting week here with stuff like Barstool going all away from their sportsbook, Penn now moving to ESPN. That was Jeremy Levine trying to defend the innovation in fantasy games that apparently DraftKings and FanDuel are stifling. And you can tell with the product, too, that they are actively trying to do that. FanDuel, I don't even think checks their own app anymore for fantasy sports. So interesting time to be gambling our money here on these platforms. We love Underdog unless you're in a non-UD state like me, then F them. There you go. I mean, it sounds like part of the reason Underdog might not be in some states is that backroom lobbying that Jeremy was accusing DraftKings of doing. And I do think, too, from what I know of both Jeremy and Underdog and just also how this goes in terms of company PR, They must have some pretty good intel to say that to make this kind of conjecture that Underdog is being stifled by DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm pretty sure they know there's a smoking gun somewhere out there. All right, so we have a 0-1-4-1. I think so. I love a falling Javante. He's not falling very much lately now that people have the cosign on health. So I've been taking him a little bit less, but I am going to go for the Dallas stack. I just said I'm not a believer in it, but you got to take what the draft room's giving you here. The fact that we have a Niners stack and a Dallas stack, two teams that are very live to be Super Bowl contenders this year, two teams as well that their defense should be able to perform again at the level they did last year. That bodes well for the win totals. Just because these are teams that were really good last year and not dependent on turnovers to have that success. That bodes well for Dallas and the Niners as well as Philly. So I think these are all teams that are nice to be building around, and building around good teams, I think, is one of the unspoken things of best ball, where I certainly build around some dog shit teams or teams that could be middle of the pack, the Pittsburghs and Seattles. I think certainly more the middle of the pack kind of teams. But for me, Green Bay as well, maybe closer to the lower end. But if you could build around the Niners, build around San Francisco, build around Philadelphia, like those are legit contenders. Legit contenders put up a lot of points, and legit contenders win more games, and all the things that bode well for fantasy scoring. So something to keep in mind as you are drafting here in the home stretch. Out of the loop, power drafting, stifling things. So basically, they've been trying to pass certain laws that would narrow the definition of what fantasy sports are. They've also apparently had some issues getting their Underdogs had issues getting their pick'ems approved in some states because of things that DraftKings and FanDuel have tried to lobby to get pushed into law. So that's the general understanding I have of it. It wasn't the most specific stuff, most specific claims I think put out there. But overall, you could tell with the product and how DraftKings hasn't really changed much for years. They're not incentivized right now to be pushing a lot of innovation. So that's something that I think would be nice to see in the space for sure. So we have Zay Flowers falling a little bit, Elijah Moore falling a little bit. Nobody here correlates that I can see in front of me. I think this is a time for a James Cook share coming up a little bit in price, but this is one where he's still pretty reasonable, going the late 80s. I still like James Cook, still will take him as a discount guy, probably less inclined to chase James Cook up to the 70s range, but he hasn't hit there yet. Does in some drafts, but overall ADP is still nice here, going at 88. They're scared of Underdog. They're just scared of, like fantasy sports is not the biggest, money maker, I think overall, DFS especially. But it is one that like they make their money and they continue making their money, and it's like low effort. They don't have to do a whole lot besides keep the pricing going. So they just want to keep that cash flow going so they can, as Jeremy pointed out in the big letter he wrote on Underdog's site, can push people towards casino games. I don't know about you guys, but I have not played a mobile casino game in my life, and I don't intend that changing anytime soon. I like stuff like this. I like stuff like DFS. I like stuff like betting, the Probably app that we'll hopefully have out within the next few weeks. That's something where it's about just getting in good bets, as best you can, giving yourself a fun sweat with the best math possible, and then seeing where it rides from there. So I think to me, just things that make this fun, that are innovative and try to make the process of winning or losing money more enjoyable or more streamlined or just fun to do, again, on the shitter. That is the one thing product development wise at sports betting sometimes misses, like, not everybody wants to be tethered to a laptop on this. Sometimes people just want to get in good bets while pooping. That is quite literally the use case for a lot of these products. And I think Underdog has shown a tendency to want to appeal more to that kind of consumer. And DraftKings, like it's harder and harder with DFS these days because they don't really make innovations. Def like choose your own destiny gambling, not house always wins gambling. Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. Anything that stifles innovation in the space is not good. I think the two things that for me for gambling would be really important is having these companies not be able to be so stifling, but also like they shouldn't be able to limit good bettors. Like I think part of the state laws should be that if you are a licensed gaming book, then you have to take the same action for everybody. But that would also hurt their profit margins. So they would push back on that really heavily. But that to me is how you sort of flatten the game out and make it a little more accessible. Because I know there are people who even are in legal states who haven't placed a single bet. And it's like, that shouldn't be the case. Like betting is fun. Like I know it's not, you're more likely to lose money, I think, in betting night to night than you would be if you approach best ball with a smart strategy and engage in the content and all that stuff. But there are ways that you can win money betting. I've certainly had some success there. I'm funding my DK drafts entirely with winnings from our Probably data and using it on DK Sportsbook. So I believe there's a way to make it fun and useful, but we'll see. Let's focus on the draft, though, because I could tell people's attention spans dwindling by me opining about the industry. Guys going running back heavy now. Walker, Montgomery, Cook, Dillon in the one hole. Nobody else I'm seeing doing anything aggressive, 0 RB. So I do think that this is probably a good room for me to have taken a few running backs early or early-ish for me. How long are you in the bathroom? 10 minutes. I don't know. If you're a dad, sometimes going to the bathroom and hiding in there is the only respite you get from having to do all sorts of manual labor around the house. So, but yeah, 10 minutes, I think, being able to play a battle royale. You can do a battle royale draft on Underdog, like on a toilet. Can't do a best ball unless you had a couple pints of ice cream the night before or something. I don't know, maybe a few too many beers, maybe speaking from personal experience. Then you could do a full draft if you really just want to strap in and have numb legs. I can be in the bathroom for 40 minutes. I draft while showering. That's interesting. That's not what I've done. The thing that I'll do is I'll usually, I'll work out, I'll lift weights, and I'll put the draft or put my phone on a little pedestal and I'll draft and kind of pay attention to it that way. That's the one thing I do that's, I think, weird with my drafting. Definitely when I had the newborn, a lot of times just holding Luca while feeding him or whatever and doing a draft because he wasn't moving, he wasn't doing anything. But now he is a danger to himself at every waking minute. So, and needs to be played with, needs to be thrown a ball at various times. So unfortunately, drafting while doing baby stuff, not as in the cards after year one. Okay, Lucky Seven's been convinced about the pooping schedules. Thank God. I did a BBM4 draft while swimming laps. That's impressive. Impressive, willing to absorb the risk to your phone, too. I my Apple Watch, I'm okay putting in water. iPhone, a little bit less in love with that concept. Just out of fear. All right, we're on the clock again. Dak fell right back to us as I kind of assumed he would. So let's take Dak here. So we have a 1-2-5-1. Dak, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, A.J. Brown, C.D. Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Brandon Cooks, and at tight end, George Kittle. I guess the one thing I would like to have a little more of would have been a Washington bring back of some note. A guy like McLaurin, a guy like Jahan Dotson, I think would have been pretty good for this build since we are building out Niners and want that week 17 correlation. But we're not going to get those guys, so we'll survive. Team is pretty sick. Thank you. Thank you. New fresh cut. Yes, the sides are even out, looking nice and narrow here because that's how we hide the white hairs that I accumulate. All right, this is working out pretty well. We got Antonio Gibson here. Gibson will be our bring back. Was hoping he would fall as I was saying that stuff out loud. Gibson, one thing that stands out. So I don't know if you guys have followed this that closely. Might be one of the things that appeals more to me as somebody that does try to read every preseason article. Eric Bieniemy apparently just really tough on this team to the point that some of the guys in the offense complained to Ron Rivera. So you might have seen that headline, but apparently some of the players are not in lockstep with that. Antonio Gibson being one of them who's been like, I am so excited to have this guy here, have him telling me what to do, have him sort of making me a better player through that process. And all the former Chiefs players, guys who are both on the I was going to say the R word for Washington, on the Commanders now, they also have been saying like, hey, just trust him. Like, let him yell at you, let him berate you, whatever. It's going to make you a better player. And the only guy who gave quotes about liking it was Antonio Gibson. So I don't know that matters. I still think that Brian Robinson is a big threat to him, a guy who actually can catch some passes. And last year, again, coming off of getting shot in the butt, like, you got to give him some grace as how he performed. And he was still pretty good for a guy who got shot in the butt in the beginning of the year. But Gibson, though, just having really aggressive quotes about loving Bieniemy's kind of style of coaching, I think does bode well for him. Maybe getting one more chance here at rejuvenation. So I will take a little more Gibson here down the home stretch, even though that is very much just conjecture and not like real data that I normally would ascribe to on here. Did a BBM4 while skydiving. What? Or is whip skydiving a thing, or is this while skydiving? Because it's entirely possible. I don't know enough about skydiving, but I can't imagine that. You should have gone viral for that, Bindles, if that's the case. I feel like that's something that Underdog would promote. It's like, wow, this guy did an Underdog draft while skydiving. Sure, he should be enjoying the blue sky, enjoying the fact that he's falling from a 10,000 feet in the air or whatever you fall from. Instead, he wanted to gamble during this once-in-a-lifetime process. That's funny. You let him yell at you, let him be hard on you. It makes you better. My motto to loved ones, trust my process. That is honestly what Eric Bieniemy said. He's like, I'm not going to change anything. This is who I am. But apparently that's why he hasn't been getting the coaching jobs over the last few years, was that he is very much a hard ass in a way that has scared off some teams and scared off some players and all that. But I don't know. Did he nay-nay while skydiving too? There's only so many things you could do while skydiving. Did you jerk off, do a draft, and nay while skydiving? Everybody's got to know. Bindles is doing whippets while skydiving and drafting. There so Bindle's a more interesting man than you might realize. And I'm actually going to do a Bindle stream on Monday after I do a stream here on the Splash Play channel. So if you want to support one of the guys in our community who's trying to get his channel off the ground, I talked about watching Bindle stream with our guy Tyler last week, and I will be joining the luminaries who've been on Bindle's channel and giving him a pop in on Monday. So come join us then as well. I don't have a gambling addiction while multi-tabling drafts at my grandma's funeral. The thing is, like, is it a gambling addiction if you have to get in 150 entries before a certain time frame? Because boy, I'll tell you, again, those DraftKings ones will be the ones I point to the most. Hard to get in 150, man. Hard to really will myself to do it. So if you got a funeral, you got to get in your 2 a day. Sorry, Grandma. Hopefully she'd understand. All right, let's see what we're getting here. I think we're going to get a nice running back either way. All right. I think for this build, it feels like Mitchell makes the most sense. Could also try to get Jalen Warren as a bring back. I'm also wondering, these guys aren't badges, and they might not like Elijah Mitchell. So I am going to go Jalen Warren. Let's see what happens. Mitchell, of course, banged up in camp. I feel like a non-badge drafter may be more inclined to let Mitchell fall because of that. Do wish Mitchell had a news item blurb here saying, oh, okay, we have out with abductor strain. So maybe they'll see that and go, I don't want this guy. He's always hurt, we say about Elijah Mitchell. For me, though, in this build with a bunch of Niners, I think Elijah Mitchell would be looking like a pretty tasty treat. I'm back to calling players tasty treats. I'm going to make that my brand. Steal it from It's Always Sunny. Make it my brand. Best ball isn't gambling. It's responsibility. It honestly does feel that way when you are drafting this much. It's just part of the job, man. It's just part of the work you have to put in as a fantasy football lover, a person who wants to win as much money as possible. There's no bigger tournament than Best Ball Mania. Like that's not even an ad read. That is just the reality of it. All right, he takes Bigsby. You don't want Mitchell, man. Mitchell's hurt. Yay! All right. When in doubt, you see guys without badges, trust the process and let them talk themselves out of an injured guy. So our team so far, feeling good about this. Dak at QB, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Antonio Gibson, Jalen Warren, Elijah Mitchell, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, JSN, and Brandon Cooks, and then George Kittle at tight end. So we can add on a Dallas tight end if we want. Maybe even take a Sam Laporta, though is he gone? But Laporta goes way early on DraftKings, still available here. Got a lot of ways to build here down the home stretch. I'm liking this team, which of course means that when I do a second draft here coming up, which I will do here, try to get this one in before the lull stream starts. Why, man? Whatever. Our CEO at Football Outsiders, and apparently we might be coming back to business at Football Outsiders too. Tried to do a call with me at 11 a.m. Wasn't available at 11 a.m. And then I'm like, yeah, between 1 and 3, I should be okay. And he's like, I'll call you then. It's like, I don't want you to actually call me between 1 and 3. I want you to give me a time between 1 and 3 that we can connect on. I hate the people who take your open window entirely. Unbelievable. But I want to get paid the $50,000 I'm owed. So that's where we are. That's the reality of Spags living, guys. You only get it here on these streams, now that we're doing them every day. Nice. Killing it, the draft Spags. Thank you, OG1 Kenobi. I appreciate it. And I guess speaking of that, speaking of the candor I just gave you guys, please subscribe down below. Only on Splash Play, you're going to get the mixture of real life things, talking about the betting industry, talking about being owed money by companies of illustrious football sites. That's only on Splash Play. And of course, you'll get the best info here I can possibly give you. I read everything. I look at everything on social media. And of course, I have access to some really good data because of Football Outsiders and Sports Info Solutions, both of which come to me earnestly. So there we go. It's an investment. That's why you use terms like portfolio, exposures, correlation. We're basically Wall Street types. That's true. It's a sure thing. It's like an index fund. That's best ball. He knows he won't say no because of the implications. Yeah. I wish he were bringing me on a boat. Instead, he's just making me in debt, the amount of a boat. I could own a boat with the amount of money that I owe. I owe my wife, that I'm owed. We could be boat people with all the tasty treats on the boat. I could bring Elijah Mitchell on that boat whenever I pleased. That loud noise you hear isn't a dying rhinoceros. That's me orgasming after each pick you make from 1,000 miles away. Apologies, I'm a bit of a screamer. Jeff angling to join the Horny Boys Club with our guy Tyler in mathology. But glad to hear it. Glad to hear I'm making men come. That's when I set out to do fantasy football content on a channel that I own and operate. I thought, you know what? I'm not doing a great job unless there's boys jacking off and beat because I'm making sick picks. It's always been the dream. All right. Are we in Purdy range? We are in Purdy range, but I'm not going to do him here. Fuck. Nobody at receiver jumping out. Don't need one of these tight ends. Let's just not risk it with the non-badge bros. I don't think they would take Purdy, but at this point, obviously, again, with what we saw yesterday on DraftKings, I'm still a little bit gun shy. So I'm going to take Purdy here, and these guys can get whoever. And there's nobody who I'm like dying to get within this range. Would obviously be happy with another share of Roshan, be happy with another share of Deonta Foreman. But at receiver, nobody jumping out. So let's get our guy. Let's get our guy. Horny Club is always open and ready for biz. Good to know. Good to know. I'd come on your boat. Thanks. That's one way to christen it. You could break a champagne bottle, or you could have strange men from the internet come and ejaculate on it. It's boy, oh boy. Why? How do people not watch Splash Play? I don't know where else you can seamlessly merge expert level analysis with jizz talk so seamlessly. So seamlessly. What pick is Jalen Hyatt selected? Jalen Hyatt is up to a 175 ADP, which he should not be at, I think. Good reports for Darius Slayton. One of the training camp reports for him today was that they were saying that there's no way he won't be the top receiver on the Giants. I think that's something I've believed as well. So happy to continue to go there. Deonta Foreman. Man, nobody here that crazy. I'm going to reach for Gainwell too. Just don't need more Foreman and Mostert at this point. Don't have any Baltimore to go with them anyway. But I do have the bet on A.J. Brown, so I'm going to take Gainwell with him. And I think we're going to be done at running back, and we are going to try to scoop some interesting receivers here late, I think is what we're going to try to do. There's one bring back for Philadelphia that I think could be good at receiver. Still have to get our second tight end as well, but Dallas has those guys late, so that's not an issue there. Pretty good build. So the team so far, 2-6-5-1. Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy at QB, Gibbs, James Cook, Gibson, Jalen Warren, Elijah Mitchell, Kenneth Gainwell at running back, receiver, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Debo, JSN, Brandon Cooks, and then a tight end, George Kittle. You can make the case I could have gone back to receiver for one more pick instead of all these running backs, but I think this made the build a little bit stronger, and I do want to get some late receivers in because, frankly, that's the one thing here where I take my Terrace Marshalls, I take my Darius Slaytons. I don't take some of the other guys that I do have some belief in, and I think that's something that I'm going to try to adjust here for my final 35 drafts, I think is where we're at. Yeah, I should probably note this too a little bit more on the stream itself, but this is draft number 117 for me in BBM. So we will hit number 118 right after this one. Spags, you're not into Jalen Hyatt. So it's not that I'm not into him. He was great last year in terms of stuff that I look at Tennessee. He was the best receiver in terms of EPA per target. A little bit of that is going to be the Tennessee offense scheming in a way that is kind of outside the box. The issue with Jalen Hyatt is that it's a tough route for him to actually get routes per game. You have obviously Paris Campbell there running out of the slot. You have both Hodgins and Darius Slayton running outside. Sounds like Slayton role is locked in stone. And it also sounds like, to me, Hyatt's role is coming out of the slot again. That is where he ran most of his routes in college. There's still a chance that he could be outside a little bit more. But if he's in that slot mix, he's competing with Paris Campbell. He's competing with Wandale whenever he returns. Cole Beasley's had no K camp. Maybe they keep him as a body. I still have Jamison Crowder on the team who's been hurt and probably will get cut. But point being, they have a lot of guys in the slot still. So I just don't think it's a sure route for Hyatt to have a bunch of routes out there. You know, I get taking a flyer on him. It's just whenever the public starts to steam up a guy too much, I don't want to get there quite as much. So if Hyatt's going, like if he's going to beat this ADP that we just talked about, where he's at 175, if people are going to take him in the 160s, I don't want to be there. If he falls to 190 range, I think you're perfectly fine to take him as much as you want. But I would still take Slayton over him. Like I think Slayton was good last year. Something that I think sometimes gets lost in the sauce a little bit, that per target numbers for Slayton were as good as almost anybody in the league. And let's pull them up because I do love reading numbers out loud. Darius Slayton last year. So 0.37 EPA per target, which puts him in George Pickens range, 13% receiving DVOA, also in Pickens range. The volume wasn't tremendous, only 4.4 targets per game. But if the Giants are going to pass more, like Slayton should be the beneficiary as the guy who has been a linchpin here, is the closest with Daniel Jones. I think that all bodes really well for Slayton, and he's just much cheaper. So that's my logic. All right. All right, we have our little bit of Buffalo. All right, so here's a guy that I'm intrigued by, older. Certainly, I think earlier in the offseason was a little bit getting steamed down because of people loving Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan has had a terrible camp. Devontae Parker got the "I'm sorry that we flirted with DeAndre Hopkins" contract extension for himself. So Parker to me was another guy that I think a veteran, older than 30, which is never going to be a great thing either, but still someone that should look pretty good in this format overall. 0.2 EPA per target, which is a very good number. 40% receiving DVOA, also a very good number for Parker. So he is a guy that I should probably have had more of just based on how I like to draft. Take Jake Ferguson here, not leave that to risk. And I do have two more picks in mind that I think should be sufficiently fun and flirty coming up here for the last few. Hey, appreciate you being here, Christian. Thanks for hanging out. Slayton is one of my highest owned players. I think that's a good one. It's always tough with guys in the late round. Like I do think you don't necessarily want to go ham on those guys just because the field's not going to even have the expected 8% ownership. So it only takes, you getting to 8% or you getting to 12% to have more than enough of those guys. But let me see in practice how I've done that. I'll just sort by Best Ball Mania. So I've got Slayton 7.8% of the time, which again kind of fits what we're talking about. A guy that doesn't get drafted every time. So me having just shy of 8% is probably enough. I did go the other way with Terrace Marshall, though. Terrace Marshall does not get drafted some amount of the time, and I have 15.5% of him. So I guess I'm not exactly sturdy with how my beliefs would shake out for those undrafted guys. Chihuahua 2 is now live. There we go. Big dog. There we go. Spags is back to being fun and flirty always. That's always my goal here. I want fun and flirty players, and I want to personally be fun and flirty on every best ball stream. How do I like drafting on drafters? Haven't done it. I am an Underdog and DraftKings only drafter. As I've talked about on here, I just only have so much mental bandwidth, especially because we do draft teams here on Splash Play since, I did one in January, then all the stuff officially opened in February right at the Super Bowl. So we've been doing drafts here, and I kind of can only do one platform, I think, for that. It gets a little bit tough for me to do a few too many platforms. So I know there's value in drafters. I know FFPC people love as well. Certainly no issue with people drafting on there, doing content around there. Just not for me. I don't know. I'm a simple man. I'm a simple farmer. I just like to come on, draft my teams, go, we're leaving today with a good haul. We got a value on CD Lamb on Underdog. I can't be thinking about other things or waiting for things to fill. That's actually the big one for me, because I have heard sometimes on drafters, you have to wait a while for a thing to fill. It's like, fuck that, man. I need something that fills immediately for my ADD brain. Drafters overrated. Look, any platform that's going to have less people on it and similar prize pools, I get the logic, and I probably should be playing on drafters. I just don't care. If they were to come to me and say, hey, here's some money, can you stream drafters drafts? Then I would be like, all right, I'll play on drafters. They haven't done that. So Underdog it is. Noah Fant going to the 17th. It's kind of interesting. That doesn't happen a lot lately. Noah Fant's been banged up in camp. I feel like should be trending closer to being healthy at this point, but he's off the PUP list, but I don't think he's practicing still. He and Jelani Woods, just two guys that need to fucking get out there and do something. Okay, Michael Wilson still available. He's going to be one of our fun and flirty picks here as a bringbacks to our Philly stuff. Wilson, a guy I know Crane has talked about him. I've been giving people advice to take him, and I actually haven't been taking him myself because I see a lot of you guys draft Rondale Moore a lot. A lot of you guys also will sometimes take Greg Dortch late, of course, talking about the Splash Play community members or Splash Play family members here who've joined down below. I do review their teams here up to 10 teams a month. So if you want to get in, $4.99 a month, and I'll review 10 of your teams a month, or a little bit more if you want. But anyway, point being with that, I see so many people taking Cardinals, and I'm like, why don't you just take Michael Wilson late? Like, that's the move there. Michael Wilson has had a gangbusters camp so far. Wasn't a world beater in terms of what he did in college, so that didn't necessarily put him on my radar as a guy I'm dying for. But situationally, like, he's an outside receiver on a team where Rondale and Dortch are competing for slot reps. Marquise Brown should be a higher pedigree guy, but if the Cardinals start tanking, and it is very much in play that the Cardinals tank out the year, because then they have the flexibility of they could trade the number 1 overall pick, or they could draft Caleb Williams and try to trade Kyler. So that's something to me where that's where I think the Cardinals metagame for them is going. And if that's the case, like, no matter what the out is, Michael Wilson is probably there in week 17. So I think he's a really good Philadelphia bring back. And I know Corain again made a similar case here earlier this week on Peach Channel. So we have a 2-6-7-2. Really nothing left, I think, that is dying for a bring back. Let's do a classic hit here. This is a guy who I don't draft either very often. I don't know that I need to draft him more, but he's going to be in the mix. It is a Jared Goff safety blanket. So another bring back for our Dallas stack with Josh Reynolds. So we got weird with our late receivers. Guys who are going to be basically unknown. So the final team here, Dak and Brock Purdy at QB, running back Gibbs, Cook, Antonio Gibson, Jalen Warren, Elijah Mitchell, Kenneth Gainwell, receiver, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, JSN, Brandon Cooks, Devontae Parker, Michael Wilson, and Josh Reynolds. And then a tight end, George Kittle and Jake Ferguson. You can make the case here that I should have just played the hits and taken Terrace Marshall, a guy who I think has a more stable role, Darius Slayton, who we talked about, instead of Josh Reynolds. But I just feel like we have enough Dallas here that getting another Detroit bring back makes sense. And I think Reynolds is more likely to be there at the end of the year than a guy like Marvin Jones. I don't think we have anybody in the chat here who is drafting, so let's go. Let's enter another one. Ball Mania IV. I'll give you guys a chance to draft with me here. Of course, $3 million to first place. 61% filled here, so it'll be filling that last 40%-ish in the last month here. We've got a bunch of spots open, so come draft with me on Underdog. Play along if you want in the chat. Josh Reynolds has a few spikes in him, I feel. There we go. I think it's possible. If this defense, or this offense rather, is so good, and this defense too, like, hopefully it doesn't get too good. It does seem like it's made some strides in camp, and certainly being in less shootouts wouldn't be great for Detroit. But I think with Detroit overall, like, just having guys who going to have 1, 2, 3 spike weeks across the year because of the attention that's going to be going to guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, guys like Gibbs, guys like Laporta. I think that does offer some late season opportunity for a guy like Reynolds and even maybe Marvin Jones, somebody like that. Ferguson going overlooked, guys. Talent at tight end. He was good last year. Ferguson was one of those guys I was surprised by because Dalton Schultz was not a plus EPA per target guy, but Jake Ferguson, 0.26 EPA per target would be a pretty good number for a tight end. Wasn't doing any gangbusters numbers or anything, just 1.4 targets per game overall. But he was playing, he was running routes. Like, I think there's room for Ferguson to be there. I think Schumacher might have beaten him out if he had an entire camp, but he did not. So I think it's pretty safe for Ferguson at this point. So you can see the draft room here. We got some of our regulars, Sam Duel, Jake Twitch, who I always highlight as a guy that I like the drafts he puts up when we're in rooms, the Icon, and of course me in the 12 hole. So I've had so much Justin Jefferson that now Underdog is saying, have some Pete spots. Pick at the back of the draft. So I'll try to get that going too. Darnell Mooney got jacked too. Mac Hollins got jacked. Good news for Mac Hollins. He's going to be jacked to be blocking on a lot of plays. But yeah, Mac Hollins is fine. I've actually been seeing Mac Hollins get drafted a lot more recently, where he's going regularly in the 17th round or so. So that's something where I think that Mac's fine. Like, Mac's fine. He had a spike week last year. It's just how many spike weeks do you get from the wide receiver 2 in Atlanta? I think you're trying to thread a little bit of a tight needle there with Mac Hollins. But I get it. Like, if you have an Atlanta stack, you should take Mac Hollins. What if Will Fuller is the Detroit piece you need? What if Will Fuller never plays in the NFL again? I think that's the more likely outcome at this point. He didn't get signed anywhere. He didn't get signed to Detroit, did he? I didn't miss that. Free agent. I remember last year, I think it was like Deshaun Watson. I was like, oh, Will Fuller, man, he's been practicing. He's going to be on a team any minute now. Just never on a team. But it would be funny if this were the year that he came back, because I was not a Will Fuller drafter last year. I know some people were a little bit dedicated to that. And would be funny, though, for those people. I'm sure funny and incredibly upsetting if they did, in fact, have a big Will Fuller year this year. Which I get the 12 spot. I'm perma stuck at 5'8", getting a lot of Kelsey Mahomes. There you go. No, I mean, look, you got to look at the bright side of any of that stuff. And the more drafts you do, you'll get more of that stuff. Fuck, are we building? We're building AJ Brown again? What can I do different here? I'm going to take a Mon-Ra with one of these. I know that. So let's just, let's put that in the queue. CeeDee Lamb goes appropriately, so we won't get that correlation. I think I take AJ Brown again. Like, I would love to get more Garrett Wilson. 13% Wilson. Yeah, you know what? I'm lower on AJ Brown. All right, AJ Brown it is as a discount. So Amon-Ra and AJ. Hard to argue that start when I had to think through a little bit more. Yeah, I have enough Devontae Adams. And it also kind of feels like you don't have to take Devontae Adams at the turn, because if you're in the 10th spot, he's going to come back to you a lot here. So we'll go with this build. And we might go extreme 0 RB this time. I'm always hankering for it, but I do think the 12 spot does bode pretty well usually for an aggressive 0 RB. Yeah, Dustin said Adams. I have enough Adams, I think, at this point. I'm at 16.4% Devontae Adams. So I've been getting him ready and frequently. I have only 11% Amon-Ra. I have 10.3% AJ Brown. And I wish these were on the screen, but of course I did not pay for any of the overlay tools this year, so I apologize for that. Garrett Wilson, I'm just under 13%. So I'm pretty well covered with these guys. I think not fully flat, but about as close to flat as you can get. Get that anchor RB, then all wide receivers till the 10th. Sure. I mean, that's one approach. It's one approach. Or you could take receivers for 6 straight rounds and then go, all right, I'm done at receiver. And you could feel, and your belly's full and you feel good about it. That's what I'm thinking here. On the way back, though, it feels like it might be another Gibbs draft, because I've said it, I want that full Detroit stack. Like, I want Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Laporta, and then Jameson Williams is optional. And to not get sniped on Goff. I want all of those things together. Shout out, Brandon's got to run, but appreciate you guys coming in here. Doesn't matter if you're watching part of the stream or watching the whole thing. Appreciate all of you guys who watch. Also, if you're watching after the fact, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. Always appreciate hearing from people after the fact. Things that you think I did wrong, things you think I could do better. General banter, always a fan of it. But of course, subscribe and smash that like button, guys. Please help us out here. It really does matter for channels like ours, where we're trying to get seen by more people. Every video I get more likes on, we get more impressions, which gets people to click more. So all that stuff kind of matters. And I hate pandering for this stuff and always having to remind people about it, but it matters a lot for old Splash Play right now in our march to 3,000 subs. 3,000 subs, $3 million in Best Ball Mania. Who could argue it? I love everybody just saying bye. Heading to a coffee shop. Can't show the stream in public. That's rude. I think if anything, you should show the stream in public and go, here's our old pal Spags who wants to hang out. Weird shit going on in the 1 and 2 hole. Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert getting reached for heavily. Najee Harris going at 26. We're going to get some fun stuff on the back end, hopefully, guys. Ooh, boy. What is going to fall in this room? Justin Herbert. I have not seen that one once. Man. Also, weird thing about my portfolio that I observed yesterday when going through the achievements on DraftKings, I do not have a single share of Justin Herbert on DraftKings. And I don't know how that happened. I know he always goes a little bit earlier than I'd like to take him. But boy, that feels like a bad blind spot for me, because I do believe a lot in the Chargers offense with Kellen Moore. I have a lot of their receivers, but do not have a lot of Herbert. Oh, good. Everybody's... Thanks for everybody telling me you're leaving. Hey, everybody who's staying, can everybody who's staying just go like, I'm staying. I'm not fucking leaving. Full Wolf of Wall Street style. I've got Keenan at 2nd, Herbert at 5th from the 1 spot, but that's a little rich. Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but taking him at the turn is a bold move. Jahmyr Gibbs goes to Jake here earlier than I would have liked, but what are you going to do? So no Gibbs. We got him last draft. At least these drafts will correlate together. That's always what we're looking for. I'm in shambles. Mahomes coming back to Jake. Still has Burrow out there, so that'll be fine. I just got here. I'm staying. I'm not fucking leaving. I'm never fucking leaving you, Spags. Thank you guys. I appreciate the chat here, pushing back against all these people with their lives and meetings and other activities. Sorry, guys. Best ball 24/7. Get with the times. All right, we got running backs on the board. Nothing here that's going to correlate with what we're building. God, this doesn't feel advantageous to go 0 RB at this point. Oh, they're going to make me back down off of it, but let's get a share of Ramondre. Let's get a share of Brees. We're going to be responsible value-based drafters here. So we're getting Ramondre 8 picks after ADP, getting Brees about 5 picks after ADP. I think that was the correct thing to do here because this isn't some avalanche room, and we have weirdos drafting players out of pocket here. So just take the good players or the theoretically good players. I do have my objections about Ramondre overall. I think the volume's not going to be there to the same level this year. It's a different offense. It's going to have less checkdowns for the running backs and also enough running backs in there that deserve to get 2 to 5 touches away from Ramondre, if not more. So I'm not crazy about him like I was last year where he was a part of every 0 RB build I had. That said, you got to take him at face value. And if he's going to be this big of a discount, I have no issue taking Ramondre. You can't pass on Ramondre at the turn. I get it. It's a wild one here. Herbert over Mahomes is insane. There are people on Twitter who were arguing that they would take Herbert over Mahomes as a QB in real life too, which feels even more crazy taking him as a fantasy QB. But yeah, Herbert, I would say, should generally never be the first QB off the board. That just feels incorrect. He could have waited and gotten Herbert at 48. And it's not too like Herbert. I know sometimes people want to nitpick about my Christian Watson reaches when I have Jefferson in the one hole. That's a week 17 correlation, and it's one that doesn't happen that often with Watson falling to 48 and 49, whereas Herbert falls to 48 and 49 every draft. So you just don't. I don't think you take Herbert at 25. The big dog drop. Yeah, a lot of new tournaments from Underdog today, so go check them out. Chihuahua, big dog, different prize pools for everybody out there. So go check them out. And of course, the flagship Ball Mania IV. We're still grinding away on here. He probably just needs more reps. I mean, if we're talking about the guy who's drafting at the one hole, certainly a possibility. I've talked enough about on here that I think it's very important to get a lot of draft reps in because I think you become a better drafter by just knowing where the pockets align, trying to be able to read a room, how picks are going to fall to you and all that stuff. So certainly a possibility that they might just be like, oh, I got to stack my guy and I have to reach for him. So you learn a lot by doing, always. Bears RB room is a mess. It is a mess that hopefully will benefit Roshan at some point. We'll see. Take a sip of water while this maniac drafts his picks. Pretty funny that he reached for Herbert. So I guess maybe he wanted to get Mike Williams on the way back, but this is the one draft where Mike Williams doesn't fall lately, so he doesn't get Mike Williams. That would be one way I guess you could explain it where, no, because like maybe you reach for Herbert if you want to try to get Mike Williams and Jerry Jeudy, but Jeudy never falls to 48, 49 or doesn't very frequently. So I don't even know. I'm trying to defend the guy in the one hole's logic, and I don't think there is any at all to be had there. All right, so this guy, interesting move by Pile Driver. So the Najee pick immediately makes this a bad draft. Like Najee goes so late here. I've taken Najee in the 5th round. That's pretty much the only times I take Najee. So that ruins anything he's doing here. That said, Chase with Burrow, Ridley with Lawrence. I think that's an interesting start, even though, not great capital usage for 2 elite QBs or semi-elite QBs. Lawrence, as we've talked about, falls to the 80s sometimes. If you kind of scoop out the Jags receivers and nobody else wants him, Lawrence will be there for you. So that's a bad move, but interesting construction, if nothing else. Jefferson, Keenan, and Herbert is likely a very unique build. I wouldn't do it, but I get it. I think that sums it up pretty well. If he got Williams on the turn, I think that would have looked a lot better to me. Yeah, unique pairing gives up too many projected points, so it's an L. That's a good way to look at it. You want unique pairings if you can. Also, Jake is apparently experiencing what I did yesterday on DraftKings with the QBs that he wants going away. So sorry for Jake. Glad to not be the one suffering yet, at least. But we'll see. I'm going to be suffering at receiver because I'm taking these 2 running backs. Yeah, Jake got screwed not only on Fields but also on Burrow. So Jake got it both ways, and he got screwed on Mahomes, who could have fallen to him at 30. So Jake having a tough draft here, picking in the 6 hole, but he'll persevere. As Pat Kerrane wrote on Legendary Upside, I think earlier in the offseason, sometimes getting sniped on these stacks can be a positive thing because then you build another stack and you still have the correlation from the previous stack as well. And then you're going in with whatever your QB is versus the intended QB. And that QB that the person sniped from you, and especially in your pod, like if they're not stacking them up, like they're going to be at a much bigger hole than you are going to be from not getting your QB. All right, we're on the clock here. The good news is we can get some receivers if that's the direction we want to go. Another JSN share. Sure. Somebody reached for Lockett. Oh, wow. Lockett went at 40. I missed that. That's another bad one by him, too. Let's get a different bring back for Philly this time. Last time out, we got Michael Wilson. This time, we'll get Marquise Brown. So the team so far, we got Ramondre, Breece Hall, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, A.J. Brown, JSN, and Marquise. I didn't realize I got so many Browns. But big Brown team here. What can Brown do for me? Winning $3 million, hopefully. That's the dream. Been noticing less badges and more QB sniping in the rooms lately. That is August drafting on any platform for sure. The badges too. Some guys are maxing out. I've seen that on Twitter, which you might want to control yourself a little bit more if you are, thinking about maxing out this early in the process. I think try to dial it back so you have some bullets left going into September. To me, if you've drafted all your teams by September 1st, then you're fine. But yeah, definitely, I don't think it's the wisest move necessarily to get all your drafts out of the way by the first week of August. At least how I would draft. I'm a big Brown guy. Big old Brown boy. This draft is exciting. Thank you. Love to hear it. We always try to have exciting drafts here. Try to keep the energy up here. So that is why, again, pandering for subscribes. So please do it here. I think we have more fun per capita on Splash Play drafting teams than anybody you're going to find out there. Or at least most people you're going to find out there. So please feel free to join along for the ride here because it doesn't stop with best ball season either. The show will continue on during fantasy football season. Pete and I will be doing some different stuff together as well, but I will also be here doing showdown content, doing main slate content, maybe some battle royale stuff if that's what the will of the people demands. Big value to Sam Duel here. George Kittle at 70. That's pretty nice. Good for Sam. Kittle's got a 6180. Kittle's fallen, but still nice value though. Getting him at 70. That is an elite tight end right there. Getting older, but highly efficient offense. Purdy fed Kittle really well. Kittle's a guy that I've been a little bit underweight on, I think, and I've been trying to kind of dial it up a little bit here. I'm at 4.3% Kittle before that last draft. I'd like to get to 8 Kittle if I can. Close to it. Especially because Kittle was like my guy that drove my my finalist team last year. So I don't know. I should probably like Kittle more, but he's getting old. And Cameron Latu, who was at Bama, ran a lot of routes at Bama. Now he's apparently playing pretty well for the Niners. I don't think he's going to come for Kittle reps, but if the end is near for Kittle, like it's possible that you see a little more Cameron Latu. Not enough to draft him, but kind of enough to worry about, I think, for Kittle. Already have CMC and Ayuk too. That was a blessing, but as a Seahawks fan, fuck the Niners. There we go, Sam. I think you got to have your team loyalties, of course. And Sam now took Michael Pittman as well. So his team blessed by me. That much is for sure. Big Dog max entry is 39. Weird number. I don't know. I don't know why they do the things they do. Got to be honest. I'm sure there's a mathematical reason why that is the max entries, but whatever that reason is, escapes my brain. Jake's trying to get a stack for himself. Good for him. Good news, Jake. You're going to be able to get that Sam Howell stack late, I think. Hopefully nobody will compete with you for that one. My last best ball was QB Snipe Fest. 3 teams, took 4 each. It was hilarious to watch. That is going to be these rooms sometimes. You got to be patient, and you got to sometimes be willing to take dog shit players late. So I think that's one good thing about this team is we do have some outs late. We can take Mac, start to build around him late. We got some ways to navigate this one. Deshaun Watson goes, who I think also Jake might have been trying to get as his QB. So sorry for Jake. Okay, Swift falling, so we're going to take him with one of these picks. This is a running back room that if Ramondre is okay and better than I think his running back room is really strong. And we got Detroit, so we'll take Brandon Cooks again. All right, so we've got some week 17 correlation built in. Didn't get any Cleveland guys for Breece Hall, but that's not anything to worry about. So at running back, we have Ramondre, Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift. At receiver, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, JSN, of course, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marquise Brown, and Browndon Cooks. Brown, Smith, and Jigba, Marquise Brown, Browndon Cooks. There we go. The all-brown wide receivers. Taking all the QBs. Nobody's taken 3 yet, thankfully. The issue, too, is like you just know one of these guys here that's got the double QBs is going to take a third one later. I don't think it's going to be XPRO Cowboy, X-Pro Cowboy. A pile driver here feels like he might take another QB just for funsies. Probably seat one's one and only draft. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe trying to churn some bonus. I do know that Underdog has said that more, that like their research has shown that some of the weird drafts sometimes people submit as collusion are not collusion. It's just somebody who's trying to churn a bonus, putting in a team and don't know what they're doing. So something to keep in mind here, that like not everything is collusion, but obviously there are definitely, we've seen the DraftKings one that went viral a couple of weeks ago. Some things out there are collusion, and got to be careful. Oh, Jake takes AR. All right. AR, all it takes this weekend, one big bomb from AR, one big run play from AR, and he's going to be safely back in this range, back where Kirk Cousins goes at 73. But I think AR will more safely go in the 80s and 70s if he just has like one viral play this weekend, because that has been how everything has gone so far this offseason. You're literally going to be a millionaire. I don't see how this team doesn't win. No weak spots whatsoever. I appreciate that. Again, it's all about that war of attrition. Dalton Kincaid. I was looking at Kincaid for my tight end. I thought that'd be a nice bring back for Ramondre, but Kincaid goes to this guy who's vibes-based drafting here. Doesn't matter, though. I don't think Kincaid is like a league winner type necessarily. Damn. Point being, though, yeah, like you could build a really sick team. You could even get all the great values and whatever. You could even be the beneficiary of like a collusion room and get all these guys falling. Like, obviously, hopefully you're not colluding. Don't try to do that. You're going to get caught. But like, if you're part of a room here where something weird happens and you take all the best players as part of that benefit, you still might not win, just because again, the war of attrition, that is the 16 weeks leading into the finals. And the finals, it's just like, okay, cool. We have all these guys. They're great. If we don't have that 30-point game, it's going to be really hard to cut through. So that's the one thing I would say too, for everybody drafting out there. Like, you can build sick teams, feel really good about it, but it's all going to be, how does it survive the pod? How does it survive the other pods? And then how does it, survive just the general flow of football, destroying our dreams week to week. What happened in the DK collusion draft? I missed it. Basically, there were two. So there was a guy who had 3 accounts, I think, with all similar versions of the same name. And basically, like, they were passing up all these players early on to take guys at random ADPs. And if you search for it on Twitter, you'll find it. But basically, like, it was a very obvious collusion one, where normally, if there is collusion going on out there, it's not quite as obvious as that one. But it was definitely one that, a lot of the people in the community were talking about a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Lead here. BBM draft, splash play, and Peloton session every day. Appreciate the hard work. Same to you, man. Good for you getting on the Peloton. We have one here, and I tell you what, I do not get on it nearly enough. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's get Jameson Williams. So we have 6 receivers here, and we're covered pretty well for whatever time that Jameson Williams will miss. Do I take the 4th back? Do I build out New England? Oh, man. I don't know if I should press the advantage by taking a 4th running back, or if I should press my advantage at receiver by taking my 7th receiver here. I am going to take A.J. Dillon. I think that Juju would have been nice for me here to try to have a late out to get Mac Jones. That said, I don't know that I'm going to get Mac Jones, and we have 6 receivers already. So I'll go with A.J. Dillon, but the team so far: Ramondre, Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, AJ Dillon. Receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, Brownson, Smith and Jigba, Marquise Brown, Brown and Cooks, and Jameer Brown Williams. All Browns. Shout out Zachary. Shout out everybody hanging out. Of course, if you haven't subscribed yet and you're heading out, don't forget to subscribe here. About 48% of the people watching Splash Play right now are not subscribed to the channel. And if you are one of those 48% of people, you could really help out your old pal Spags by hitting the subscribe button as we try to land some deals for Splash Play, build the channel up. So make sure to subscribe if you are one of the lucky 48% out there. Nah, there goes Juju. I think Juju's undervalued. Still firmly believe that, but I don't know what he does for my team as the 7th receiver. I don't think we needed it. No, Njoku, he fits in the team Brown. That's true. He's literally a Cleveland Browns player, so he might have made sense there. Honestly, he would have been a good bring back. I maybe should have taken Njoku. Good call. I fucked that up, but Clipper Nation is right. I think Jameson there, because I didn't need the 4th running back right now. Could have taken Njoku, pushed the 4th running back later. We'll survive, but Njoku would have been pretty solid there. Oh, well. Playing catch-up at wide receiver. Thanks, Spags. There you go. Oh, Set Cards is in here. So, Set Cards team. Yeah, you went a little bit narrow at receiver here. Honestly, though, for Set Cards, if you are trying to dig out of a hole at receiver, I think Juju's an undervalued guy. Kadarius Toney, an undervalued guy. And especially now that you know he's going week 1. Shouldn't have any risk or issue there. I guess some risk, just given how hurt he's been. But I think Set Cards, if you are going to go running back heavy early on, I think he's doing a nice job digging himself out. And he also got himself some week 17 correlation with Allen and with Juju here. Also got a Cook stacked with Allen. I get it. Can't have everybody in a draft. Unless you're an ex-pro cowboy. And then you can just reach for them all and have a team that makes no sense. But feels good for what you want. Stream a big dog. Psh, I haven't gotten paid in 3.5 months, guys. You think I'm trying to do a big dog? No, thank you. I can afford to max out BBM and afford to do my DK run right now of DFS tournaments week to week. That's all I can manage, unfortunately. And again, the mental bandwidth too. I did a Dalmatian earlier. That's about as much as I can do in terms of the high stakes. See what we get here in these last few picks. Think certainly some players I would like to take in these spots. Sam here, drafting in the 3-hole, felt like he had to take Dalvin. Nice discount on Dalvin. I still worry about it, and I'll say it out loud. I just think that there's still a chance that Dalvin Cook is Will Fuller. Guy does not have any sense of what his own value is in the marketplace, which is very hard, I think, in the modern running back economy. All right. See some players on the screen that I think would work pretty well for us. What are you going to do? Donation Foundation. Thinking of ways to fuck me here. No, are you going to fuck me, Donation Foundation? Don't you fuck me. Don't you fuck me. Okay. That was the lesser of the fuckings. Jared Goff, we need here. Obviously, we have both pass catchers for him. Would have liked to have gotten Gibbs, but we didn't get that one. And God, I just don't trust Laporta coming back to me. What matters more to this team right now? Another receiver, another running back, which we don't really need, or getting Sam Laporta and locking down the stack. I just don't think Laporta's coming back. I'm taking him. Depreciating the value of this team a little bit, but I want my Laporta shares. I'm already over on Laporta, so I shouldn't force Laporta in. But I've been dying for like a nice, pristine Detroit stack. And this one's still not perfect either. Gibbs, to me, if you get him in a Detroit stack, that is a perfect Detroit stack. But for this one, though, I feel like that made sense. So the team so far, Jared Goff at QB, Ramondre, Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, AJ Dillon at running back, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, Jameson Williams at receiver, and a tight end, Brown Laporta. Yeah, I was waiting for Donation Foundation to go, you know who really would complete my team? Jared Goff. And fucking me over. Thankfully, he did not. But yeah, I would have also considered taking Goff and Rodgers there and then trying to push Laporta. But I just don't think Laporta is going to get 5 picks after ADP at this point. Like Laporta is a riser. And I think I can afford to dollar cost Laporta up. Again, not including last draft. I'm at 14.7% Laporta, and my Laporta was coming later because I've been taking him since January, again, or February rather, when the first big board drafts came out. So Laporta, I can afford to take a few lofty shares, I think, for my portfolio. When Jameson gets back, it's on. It's hard to argue a guy like Jameson Williams being on turf, being in an offense too that should be more explosive, that should continue to grow and improve. I think those are all really good things for Jameson Williams. So, yeah, and if you could absorb the risk too, like this particular build, I think, where we have such a strong start at receiver, like this is a team built to absorb that initial, we won't have Jameson Williams. And then, like 6 weeks in best ball is a very small fraction of what it matters at the end. Over 15% on all rookie tight ends, the 4 main at least. I think that's the move, man. Like Lucky 7, I've talked about this on the stream. I think that's what wins the tournament this year. Like I genuinely believe that. Maybe it's a mix where it's like one vet tight end with 2 rookies. But if you're getting Musgrave, if you're getting Mayer, if you're getting Laporta, who's the fourth one? I always leave out a fourth tight end in that group. Who the fuck am I forgetting? Not Darnell Washington, to be clear. He's draftable. Oh, and Kincaid, of course. Yeah. I think you should have all those guys. Like, I think certainly it would be nice. I think they should all probably be in the same ADP pocket. And that's why I take more Mayer and Musgrave at this portion of things. But like those guys are just really good tight ends coming in. And I think it's just one of those things that people are like holding the priors of the league to, so near and dear to their heart. And it's just not what the league is now, where it's so much easier to come in from a college offense and be good now. It's so much easier as well for like guys like these big tight ends to get out in space and be used, because that's what the league's focus is, where you saw, Dallas Goedert and Travis Kelce be the Super Bowl tight ends, the copycat league. So they all want their own version of that. I think there's a lot of things trending towards these rookie tight ends being highly involved in a way that previous ones haven't been. And these guys were also all pretty good blockers. Like they're all equipped to hit the field fast. With unique size too. And honestly, like you shouldn't take Darnell Washington that often, but he's like the 5th guy too, where he's going to be out there. He's been mauling guys at practice, like mauling TJ Watt in practice, which is not easy to do for a veteran, let alone a rookie coming in. He's been doing that and making like great jump ball plays in the end zone. Like, I think that's something for Darnell where he's going to have a spike week or two. I don't know if that makes him draftable, but I do think, if you're hard up and you're in an 18-round draft or a 20-round draft, I think that Darnell at the end makes sense. Rookie tight ends, this is the year, guys. I mean, look, you have never had a class of tight ends coming in this good. You like, I don't think you have in the NFL ever had this many bodies who are this good. You have your Kyle Pitts, and Pitts went for 1,000 yards. Like, I mean, I know he wasn't great last year for people, but like, let's not sleep on the fact that we just saw a rookie tight end. Granted, a guy touted as a generational prospect, but what if Pitts wasn't as generational of a prospect? What if he was just a rookie getting opportunity in a way that tight ends haven't historically? As the NFL just becomes more of a flag football league, there's a lot of opportunity within that, I think. All right. We do need a second QB. Nobody on the board fits that criteria, though. 1461. Can we build out another late stack? Ugh, I do not love this pocket. I am going to take another share of Kendre. I do think for me, you could get away with taking just 4 running backs this build I have, but I do still like getting the numbers there and getting to 5. All right, but now we are definitely done at running back, I would say. Seattle, Pittsburgh, fucking nothing on the screen that really jumps out as making sense for me. This is a tough pocket for me. I'm going to take Irv Smith here just to get a second tight end. Do you love Irv Smith? Have enough Irv Smith. He doesn't correlate with anything on here, but I do think in terms of a second body at tight end and a guy who, like, this could be a 2 tight end build. I have enough flexibility to do more, but really, like, this pocket just didn't work for me. I would have taken a New England guy, would have taken a Buffalo guy, but nobody fell and nobody made a lot of sense here. Whatever. mean, we got our primary stack. It's always tough when you do get that primary stack because it's like, okay, I don't really have to do much else in this room to feel too crazy about it. Damn you, Spags. That was my bring back. Oh, well. Oh, well. Sorry. Just need a tight end. Just need a tight end. And like really nobody on the screen works. This is the tough part for me too, where I do draft, like when I draft running backs this early, is that I really have a tough time with the draft capital bucket because I never take two running backs in the first 4 rounds for the most part, like maybe sporadically, but so infrequently. And as a result, like I just love these pockets of running backs. Like all these guys are Singletary being the pass game back for Houston, very much in range of outcomes. And him just taking work from Dameon Pierce, also there. Like the new regime brought him in. Gainwell taking snaps away from Penny and from Swift. You guys have been banged up a good amount in their careers. That's certainly a player that I would be willing to go to. But we have Swift, so we don't need him. I think it's just tough. It's tough when you draft out a type this much and you get used to working pockets at certain ranges. And I think that's what I'm running into personally. This is actually an interesting take that Pitts was a volume guy and not a freak. Supports thesis on the group since none of them are that special. I hope the hopium is connected to the wide receiver class. Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. I think that Pitts was still a freak, but I mean, you look at the EPA numbers for all the tight ends, like all these guys were very good in various ways. Like Mayer was the worst EPA per target guy, but he got the most volume. 36% target per out run rate for a tight end is like crazy. That's what Mayer had. And then Darnell Washington, 0.39 EPA per target. That's great. Kincaid, 0.37 EPA per target. That's great. Musgrave, 0.60 EPA per target is unbelievably good, but he only played 2 games and was all downfield targets. Schoonmaker had a 0.441 EPA per target. Like these are great numbers for guys coming in, and they all played at legit colleges and played real competition. So this is one of those takes I think some people are gonna have to walk back as just the rookie tight end erasure. I think it's gonna be something that people are gonna have to regret after the season ends. We got 2 picks coming up though, so we'll see how we round this team out. Don't need another running back, though there are some that could make sense. Jerome Ford, by the way, a news item that came out today, apparently going to be up in the air for week 1, labeled as week to week, as you can see in the headline. But apparently it seems like he is still up in the air if he can go for week 1. I still would take Jerome Ford. I do think this team is built around the idea of having Jerome Ford, giving him a chance to be the backup and maybe a guy that if they want to go low cost at running back and not keep Nick Chubb in the future, that they want to see what Ford can do. So I think that Ford is still a viable pick. Not one that I think I need to make, which is tempting, but we'll get through it. Let's see what Donation Foundation does here. He's got 3 QBs. So, of course, he's going to auto-draft Kyler Murray. I was thinking about taking Kyler here because I do have the bet on Marquise Brown, but we will go another direction. We'll take Devontae Parker, and let's just lock up dog shit Mac Jones. So we got Mac Jones here. Obviously, part of the thesis of Ramondre, why he could be good this year, is a lot of targets at running back. So I think taking him makes sense. Devontae Parker again, guy who's going to be playing outside. I would rather have Juju than Parker, but the ADPs obviously account for that. So we're good there. Let's read the team. Jared Goff, Mac Jones at QB, running back Ramondre, Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, AJ Dillon, Kendre Miller. Receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, JSN, Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, Jameson Williams, and Devontae Parker. And then Sam Laporta, Irv Smith. There you go. Can't wait to read Pat's article on building the perfect tight end. He's found, I heard this too, but Pat found significant amounts of tight end production tied to play action, which means inline blocking mattered greatly. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it still comes down to team will more than anything. Some of the look back data, I'm personally getting a little fatigued by. Like, I do think that sometimes when you go, but in the last 10 years, and it's like, okay, the last 10 years for a league that really does change year to year meaningfully, I think starts to carry a little bit less weight for me. Like, I think if you compared the NFL in 2012 to the NFL in 2022, it's just like worlds apart in a way that I don't think the data is the most one-to-one. That's one of my pet theses of the year. So you can feel differently. And we'll both find out. As I'll say it, the mantra of Splash Play, everybody's take is as valid in August as it is, as mine would be. So Your take's as valid as mine, and then we'll find out this year. You sold me at Goff and Mac Jones. I mean, listen, everybody wants a running QB. How about two statuesque QBs who just create value for their pass catchers? That's what we're trying to thread the needle on here with Mac and and Goff. But honestly, like I love the guys who are athletic. Like obviously AR is my biggest stand, both publicly and also with my draft capital at QB. But sometimes you just want a gawky white guy. Sometimes you just want a gawky white guy with the real athletes around him. And that's what we've got here with Goff and Mac. Should I draft Bijan, Saquon, or Diggs at 8th pick in my draft? I would go Diggs, but that's me being more of a 0 RB guy. I think that if you are going to draft for a little bit more safety, Bijan would always be a guy I'd go to. I've said it, and I'll say it in a lot of episodes. Bijan and Chubb are really the two anchor running backs that I think you can build around and have some confidence in going in that early part of drafts. So I'd go Bijan. Bijan is a guy that really the worst case scenario is him being Tyler Algier last year. And he comes in with a better pedigree, a little more athletic profile. And Algier was just a great running back last year. Like I know that sounds like me pumping my bags for takes that I did previously, but like he was the best analytics running back last year was Tyler Algier. 1,000-yard rusher, despite missing a few games. Like you can't beat that. And Bijan's going to be that, but better. So I think that's why Bijan has some safety. And Chubb, I think, a little bit less safety because he is older. But Cleveland, I think, being a good offense, being a world beater team, that creates a lot of opportunity this year for a guy like Nick Chubb. Would have considered taking Hunter Henry here at the end, but Sam Duel takes him. So I'm reaping what I sowed by taking Irv Smith from Sam. He gets Hunter Henry here, but that's fine. Usually feel great about your drafts. I watched this one. If you win, I'll match your $3 million. Mac could be benched by week 5. Interesting, John. I think you got to give Mac a lot of grace for what happened last year. Like having Matt Patricia be the OC was one of the dumbest things a football team has ever done, at least in recent memory. And I think you can make the case that like Bill Belichick just gets too much leash with how he handles that stuff. Let's round out this room though. We're going to take one more receiver here. I'm just going to take Michael Wilson again. I think he makes sense in this build because we have the bet on Arizona without Arizona, so that's fine. And I'm going to add, like Gesicki obviously losing his luster. I do think Henry makes a little more sense. The guy is going to be out there for every snap. And again, be like Consigliere talking about, going to be out there blocking more. But Gesicki, because I didn't get Juju Smith-Schuster, I'll make the bet that Gesicki gets more slot work than it seems. Not a bet I love, but as a third tight end, just doesn't matter that much. So our final team here, maybe it could have been a 3 QB build, but we got sniped on Kyler. That kind of threw me off that. Jared Goff and Mac Jones at QB. Ramondre, Breece Hall, DeAndre Swift, A.J. Dillon, Kendre Miller at running back. At receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, JSN, Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, Jamison Williams, Devontae Parker, and Michael Wilson. And then a tight end, Sam Laporta, Irv Smith, Mike Gesicki. That's it. I'm not taking Jelani Woods anymore right now for myself. I think I will take Kylan Granson a little bit more down the stretch, but I will mostly go, if I get AR, I'm not going to grab a tight end. Woods not practicing at all is such fucking bad news for him. Like he's got to get out there and earn and win the role with a new coaching staff. And right now it's just Kylan Granson because Mo Alley Cox is hurt. Will Mallory's hurt. I think they just brought in Ricky Seals-Jones, the camp body. So like Woods is just a fucking nuisance, man. He needs to play. He needs to be out there playing to materialize in his value. Strongly considering reaching for Gibbs at 23 in my home league, full PPR, 40-yard play bonuses. Little too rich, but in a home league, you can get away with that a little bit more easily. So I think that's fine. And Andrew thinks he just flushed $25. Andrew, which one? Oh, A. Weekland. Okay, let's see Andrew's team. Andrew's got Wilson, Stafford, Ritter at QB, Pollard, ATN, Sanders, Montgomery at running back. At receiver, Cup, Metcalf, London. At least you correlated your receivers. Cortland Sutton, Michael Thomas. I mean, look, this is a team. It's not one that's like lighting my world on fire or anything. Weird to have the Chicago guys. Anytime you have this many Chicago guys and you're not taking Justin Fields, like it's just a mistake because any bet on these guys is sort of contingent on Fields taking a leap and being useful. But you did okay, Andrew. Like, I mean, ultimately any team can win it all. It's just a matter of staying alive, building smart construction, stacking up your QBs, all that stuff we talk about here. And you did that. So that's all you can do. What about the icon? Oh, God. What about the icon? Lamar, Pickett, Stroud. You got Bijan, which is nice. Again, we talked about him. Wouldn't take Bijan and Algier. I think that's a mistake. Yeah, your team's fine. You got Baltimore. Would definitely get Miami in a Baltimore stack, but whatever. If you want thorough team reviews, though, guys, hit the join button down below. Send me your team, whether it be on Pete's Deposit Kingdom Discord, whether it be on my Twitter handle at Chris Spags. But if you join the channel down below, I'll review your teams and happy to give you feedback more directly about what you're doing. That is the one sales pitch here, so I don't want to spend too much time doing it on stream. But again, follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod, and come back tomorrow for Spag Stacks, where I will spin the wheel and draft some of my final remaining teams left. I think I have 9 more teams left to draft from. They include teams ranging in quality: the Niners, the Bears, the Bengals, the Bills, the Browns, the Bucks, Chargers, Dolphins, Eagles. So should be fun tomorrow there, spinning the wheel and seeing what we have to draft. But I'll be back with you guys then. Please enjoy your weeks. Of course, don't forget to use that promo code SPLASH and Underdog as well, and subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, all that stuff. But very much appreciate you guys hanging out with me here, and I will go and try to do meetings in the hopes of finding the money that I'm owed. But thanks for hanging, guys. See you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your weeks. Good luck. Bye.